Good morning. My name is Ray Lozano, Executive Director for Student and Family Empowerment in El Paso ISD. This morning I'd like to share a resource that we have begun using to facilitate learning of our social emotional learning cohort of schools. We're up to 26 campuses this year, and the tool is called Schoology, which was launched in August of this year for all teachers in the district to facilitate the active learning framework as well, and to drive learning beyond the classroom. So we're utilizing it in a way to extend learning beyond our SEL professional learning sessions. So essentially it works like Facebook. As you can see, we have 101 members. Any welcoming news, any new updates, things of that sort would be put on this page here. We also have a link for discussions. We created a discussion activity in our first learning session with cohort 2 schools on the Guardians of Apricot Lane. It's a video in which we wanted them to look for some sheepdogs actually demonstrating or modeling social emotional learning. We also have an album to just collect some artifacts about our learning. At this point we've just put in pictures, but this is something that our teachers really like being featured in, and central office leadership and other employees in the district are able to see our teacher teams at work. As I mentioned, we have about 101 members from throughout the district that are part of our second cohort of SEL schools. But this is really the heart of this tool in terms of how we use it, and that's our resources tab. And so here we have a direct link to the Castle School Guide, and again, to reinforce the learning. So this previous session we focused on key activity 1, so the SEL teams can certainly go back and forth and refresh or deepen their learning with respect to key activity 1, or if they wanted to preview learning for the next time, they can certainly do that. We have a video here on being a positive educator, just something that wanted to make available to teachers just as an inspirational message in terms of their role. We have a professional learning plan. We've differentiated between elementary and secondary this year. And so essentially what we do is we map out their learning for the year. And so it pretty much talks about it's almost like a draft of an agenda, if you will, but it previews the learning for them. That way they know what the process is going to be like for the year. And this year we're using a little bit different model. We provide professional learning, then there's an application process in the afternoon. So they develop turnaround plans, things of that sort, to drive the implementation at their campuses. And then we spend the next several weeks engaged in the coaching visit process. So we have that for secondary. As I mentioned, we focused on key activity 1, and essentially what we do is there's another link to that particular part of the school guide. We started downloading tools from the guide, and then in some cases customizing them so that then the campus teams can have a tangible set of resources that they can use, and that's been a wonderful development with the school guide. So one of the things, the products that we had them come up with, is how they were going to communicate internally and externally with respect to their SEL implementation and what we're trying to accomplish as a district. So there's a template that pretty much we took from the school guide, and it was modified with the help of our consultant Sherry Raven. We also created an SEL infographic to facilitate their communication. We wanted an elevator speech, if you will, for all members of the SEL team, and ideally for all members of every campus where we're engaged in this work. So back to key activity 1, there's some foundational professional learning, so we've linked them up again with some videos to help message the work of the campus and the district with respect to SEL. Family and community partners, we took some resources out of the school guide. SEL for parents in English and Spanish, that's been fantastic. There's a blog here in which that Mr. Cabrera authored on getting smart regarding the importance of engaging families in social emotional learning. So that will help drive learning with respect to why that's an important effort. And then there's a template here with some customization opportunities for each campus to highlight again how they're implementing social emotional learning. So we focused a lot on strategy, on an SEL strategy, which you're very familiar with, the 3 signature practices. And so that really drove the learning in the morning. We then engaged the SEL teams in a role-like activities. So they, in this particular case, for example, principals talked about the 3 signature practices from their vantage point. They need to define their expectations. We identified some look-fors for them to consider, but then they begin refining that process. They dialogue, network, so on and so forth, and get lots of great ideas from each other. And so that really helps with the processing of the strategy and then the application at the campus level. And so that was a really useful dimension that was added to our learning. So that's what we did with respect to key activity 1. We do have folders for all of our campuses. So this is a repository, if you will, of their planning templates, their updates, things of that sort. I'm just going to click in on Alta Vista. So they're in the process of developing their rollout plan for social emotional learning, just a couple of steps. And so we asked them to focus on how they were going to provide foundational learning for internal and external audiences, as well as what they were going to do with respect to expectations on the implementation of the 3 signature practices. Here they'll identify some dates for their assigned coordinator to go out and support them with either helping to facilitate or co-facilitate the turnaround, or also just coaching visits. So that's been a big part of our rollout, and that gets requested all the time. So here's a place where they can do that and communicate that need to us. So again, every campus has one of those folders. We created a link, so any highlights that we have in terms of news about SEL coming out of our district, we're going to be dropping it into this particular folder for them. It's pretty easy to replicate. We have 2 different cohorts, and then we have a central office group, and then we have a central office leadership team too. It's as simple as me just copying it to those folders in those groups. SEL Training Treasure is something that our campuses have been requesting many of the training materials that we use, and so we're starting to drop patterns. Like for the competencies was an activity where we jigsawed it and had them reflect on what the competencies were, dialogue about that, and then there's a puzzle that they put together, and then we debrief as a group. Roll tents to help with group roles. That's important, and then even the posters that we use to help reinforce the learning. They wanted to know who the vendors were, so we provided that information for them as well. So that's a very popular folder there. We have our PowerPoint that they can again use to turn around the training, or again if they needed just to go back and look at something again. We wanted to make sure that we have that. Pretty much what we tell them is anything that we share with them, we're going to give to them because we want them to take that work forth and implement it. This has been a really good folder as well. We talked quite a bit with our principals in August about the 3 levels of resistance, and so at this point we really don't encounter too much deep-seated resistance. Level 3, we encounter level 1 here and there. Our district and our superintendent have done a really great job of setting the table for us, so to speak. So to arm our principals with some resources to I don't want to say to engage level 1 resistors, or to help them understand why we're doing the work that we're doing. Nothing speaks louder than research, and so we try to arm our principals, our counselors, and our SEL teacher team members with research that highlights the benefits and the impact of social emotional learning. And so we also tie that into our district strategic plan as well. So in a nutshell, that's really how we use Schoology. It's been a very positive response to this. They love that they can go back and learn, and I'm really hopeful that at some point they'll start using this discussion forum for a Q&A so that we're engaging in an online PLC. So been a really great experience with this so far, and if any district or anyone else is really interested in learning a little bit more about how we use this, we'd be happy to share how we're using Schoology and EPISD. Take care and have a wonderful day.